All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
And today we are excited to talk about our first impressions with Genshin Impact. We all have had a chance to play it and can't wait to get to the discussion. After that, we're going to talk about the possibility of a Switch Pro, the features we want in a Switch Pro being RPG fans. But there's also rumors going around about Monster Hunter Rise, which is coming to the Switch in March 2021, that people believe there's some kind of indications from Capcom that this might be one of the first games that's optimized by Switch Pro. So we'll talk about that rumor and also our thoughts with the Monster Hunter Rise trailer and just the announcement of the game. And then we have a Discord question from Valvedrix, who asks, you had to make a party of 4 Final Fantasy characters to last you an entire adventure. Which characters would you choose? So we have some really good topics today. Let's go ahead and jump into our first impressions with Genshin Impact. Now, I've had about 14 hours to play with the game, and I just want to go over some kind of the basic foundational level things you should know about Genshin Impact before we dive completely in here. If you don't know, Genshin Impact is a free-to-play game. It's story-focused. It's an open-world RPG. It has 24 unlockable characters. It's been recently released on September 28th for PC, mobile, and PS4. We do have a Switch version that's coming at a later date, and people are really enjoying the cross-save feature between the PC and mobile. That doesn't actually work between PS4 and PC and mobile, unfortunately, but I'm kind of interested to see if this will have some kind of cross-save feature with the Nintendo Switch version. But regardless, it's pretty cool, but it does require an internet connection to play. However, it's not a completely multiplayer game. You can do dungeons and stuff like that with other people, but it's primarily a single player game. So the story concept of the game is basically that you are this traveler from an unknown origin. It's kind of tropey, right? But you're separated from your sibling and you're dropped into this world called Teyvat by a mysterious god. And the goal of the game is to uncover more information about the gods in this world. That's the core story here, right? The aesthetic, people have pointed out very rightly that it's very much influenced by Breath of the Wild, but many people have pointed out that the towns and character art is more of a Tales of game, and some of the UI features as well is very Tales of also. So it's kind of a blend between those two, making its own unique thing. Gameplay, though, exploration, totally Breath of the Wild. Like there's time stamina bars.
Very.
Yeah. There's time stamina bars for activities like climbing, swimming, and gliding, which encourages strategic exploration, right? Because you can only climb so high without falling. But it does have, standard open world stuff like cooking and crafting also available. But what makes it different is this is an RPG, right? So there's level up mechanics that are not really present in Breath of the Wild. You gain experience. You can optimize your character. Additional characters are added through quests or trials, which isn't really something that Breath of the Wild does. So the combat is really focused on that party-based structure where, each character has a unique element like fire or water, and you have to switch between the characters and use that to your advantage to gain a win in the battle, right? So that's kind of where people are pointing out that this game really differs is the combat. But the biggest thing that I think is overshadowing this entire game is there was a controversy when the first trailer was released that's still lingering to today. So the first trailer for this game, I think they're trying to highlight the Breath of the Wild similarities, and that kind of backfired because people got really pissed off. And there was one guy that was on film at a convention outside of a Sony booth. Sony was showing off this trailer, and he literally destroyed his PlayStation 4 Pro, like on the ground, on the cement, right? And people filmed it and stuff in protest over this game because he was just such a Breath of the Wild fan that he thought this was like heresy. Go ahead.
Can I ask something about that real quick?
Sure.
What motivates you to get so mad that a product exists that you feel the need to take a $400 console, pick it up, and throw it to the ground out of anger? Let's see. First off, this is not a Sony exclusive game, so not exactly sure. I mean, you could have thrown your mobile phone down too, and that would have
Well, the funny thing is it's coming. It's coming. It was announced later that it's coming to Switch. So did the same guy break his Switch?
And secondly,
Right.
do you think a game like this would realistically negatively impact the Legend of Zelda series in any way, shape, or form? Or it just simply being influenced? Because we have Immortal Phoenix Rising coming out in December, which I'm really looking forward to.
Right.
By the way, but that's a topic for another day. But I'm really looking forward to that. And that thing is basically copy and pasting a lot of Breath of the Wild elements, even though they're trying some things their own. I don't get why people care so much if a game copies so many elements from another game.
Hmm.
Like, the worst will happen is the game will get bad criticism and no one will buy it. Like, do people really think that, like, oh no, Genshin Impact has come in, no one wants to buy Breath of the Wild 2 now,
Well,
and that now the Zelda series has gone under because Genshin Impact is too powerful of an IP now? Like, no. Why do people think like that? It's absolute insanity.
well, Nintendo would not. I don't think Nintendo would go to that lengths for this player, right? They're not like going to be like, "Oh, you're such a big Breath of the Wild fan. We're going to give you a free Switch." You know, like they're not going to do that.
No.
So, like, Nintendo's a corporation, man. Like, it's not your friend. It's not your enemy, but it's a business, and it's to go to that lengths. I agree with you, Eric. I,
Look, I'm a big Zelda fan. Everyone knows this. I'm a major Zelda fan. I live and die by it. The product is safe. It's not going to just suddenly disappear or be second best just because another product takes influence from it.
nah, man. Genshin Impact is the new Breath of the Wild.
And even then, the different I mean, there are a lot of similarities to Breath of the Wild. No joke. I mean, you got the gliding, there's even goblin camps that give you a treasure chest as a reward if you
Yeah.
kill the camp. There's a ton of stuff. I mean, this is a Chinese made game, and I mean, they're not above copying elements from other games to make itself appealing to the audience.
Mhm.
So you can't really be surprised with that either. But like, I just don't get what makes you like legitimately angry that a
Well,
product like this exists. It has its audience. People love the waifu stuff.
mhm.
You know, just let it be. It's not going to affect Zelda in any way, shape, or form.
Well, not only that, if you don't want to play the game, that's fine. But you don't have to like. I see some people that are out there like really like aggressively, almost like wanting to like debate people that enjoy it, like you're wrong, right? And it's like, dude, just let them enjoy it. I mean, it would be one thing if you play the game for however long and you got serious gripes with it as a game, right? So you just don't like the game because of X, Y, or Z, and you're pointing out, okay, this is why I don't like this game. Well, that's fine. You played the game. If you're choosing to not even play it, but then you're going to like actively get irritated with people that are saying that they enjoyed it. It's just silly, man. It's just
Yeah.
silly. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys feel like Eric, you did bring up some like clear points of just obvious inspiration. I'll call it inspiration from Breath of the Wild. And but like having played it now, I like where do you guys sit with this? Do you feel that it's a Breath of the Wild clone? And I know Stan, you're kind of you actually have not played Breath of the Wild, right?
No, but I mean, it's kind of if you follow gaming at all, you see it everywhere and know what it's about. And yeah, like I even having not played it, I can notice the similarities right away
Yeah.
from Genshin Impact. Yeah.
I think it dances on that razor's edge,
Yeah.
most certainly. But
Mhm.
then again, I've only played it for like 2 hours. A lot of people tell me that it opens up a lot more in terms of what you can do in the game the further you get in. But initial first impressions from me, yeah, there is a lot of Breath of the Wild like aspects it introduces you to. And
Yeah.
like you said, Hat, like it's like a Tales like story and towns and stuff like being put into a Breath of the Wild like world where you traverse the different spots of interest while you're out there. But I think ultimately, while yes, there are clearly things taken from the game, I think it does ultimately do enough to differentiate itself. I think the waifu collecting aspect is a major thing for a lot of people who play this game.
They're not all waifus.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's like one male character per 15 waifus, something like that.
Hey man, Breath of the Wild did not have that. No, I like
You
I
had one waifu to save.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I saw
free.
I saw this YouTube video from it was actually a YouTube video from GameSpot of all places, surprisingly, but they got this YouTuber who has this entire YouTube channel surrounding Breath of the Wild, right? Like his entire channel is devoted to Breath of the Wild, and he's made like 100 videos on the game, and he has about 2,300 hours logged into that game, and obviously just making videos after videos after videos on the game. He's a big fan, and so they got this guy to play Genshin Impact for 50 hours, and then they had him like write his thoughts out on the game. And what he pointed out was that, like, initially, yeah, it did seem like Breath of the Wild. Like, of all the things like we've brought up here, Eric, you brought up that seem very similar. But as you keep playing the game, and this is where I'm starting to get to, is that the game does start to feel like its own distinct thing, because it feels like it was made as an RPG first and an open world adventure game second, whereas Breath of the Wild was designed as an open world game. And so it has similarities with, like you brought up, the little camps with the same types of enemies and the same cell shaded look, and you can glide and stuff, but that's not really, that's just something to do on your way to the next task. Whereas Breath of the Wild was more, hey, what's over that cliff? What's over there? Let me go see what's over there. Let me see if I can get across this pond. Whereas this one is much more task oriented, and it's because it's rooted in RPG elements. You're trying to get new characters. You're trying to progress the story. It's not the same type of core inspiration behind it, although it is using Breath of the Wild elements to let yourself be entertained while getting from point A to point B. And I thought that was a very like honest and like correct opinion or outlook on this game, because I was like, he's got a point. That's a good point. It's an RPG first, whereas Breath of the Wild is an open world adventure game first.
I think that's pretty fair to say. And let me go my way to say that this isn't just a cheap knockoff game. This is actually a high quality
$100 million, yeah.
They clearly put money and effort into this game, and I will give them major props. It was very easy to download. It was very easy to log in. It didn't take any time to register. I didn't have to deal with any bull crap. It let me create my account. I signed in. It took me a whole amount of 10 minutes to get everything up and going in that game, and it ran smoothly just from the start, and it runs smoothly every time I get on.
So you played it on PC then?
Yeah, I play on PC.
Yeah, that's what I played it on. Stan, you said you played on your PS4?
Yeah, so I played it on PS4, and the game does have some frame rate dips here and there. Particularly if you have to kind of like snap the camera around like really quick, and there's like all of a sudden 7 or 8 enemies like on the screen that you're just putting there all at once.
Right.
Or if the enemies have particularly like quick movement or animations, or in some of the towns when you have like some of like you're kind of dashing through the town, then you'll get kind of some slowdown. But since the game is free, I don't know how much of a
So
how much you can really complain about this issue. From what I understand, it's only the PS4 version, though.
yeah,
I haven't heard people complain about the mobile or the
the
PC
only
version.
the only issue that I had on the PC version was there was a one dungeon that I was going through where I jumped on this like bale of hay, and there was like a space in between in the back of the bale of hay and the wall, and my character just got infinitely stuck, like he was falling.
Oh no!
And like I couldn't get out of it, right? I don't think it would let me. I didn't try teleporting, but so I just exited out of the game and went back in, and it was fine. But that's the only issue I've had on PC. Now I have a really good internet connection, but I don't think that there's that much that's being used for that. I think it's mostly just to like download updates and they give you rewards for logging in every day and that type of thing. So I don't.
Have you tried the mobile version yet?
I've. I mean, a mutual friend of the podcast, he's been sending me pictures and screenshots and talking about it, and he's been playing it almost exclusively on his phone, and he's just amazed with how good it looks on the phone. That like the screenshots that he's sending me do look really good. I mean, this is a very gorgeous game. I mean, he's sending me stuff with sunsets and over cliffs and stuff, and it does look really good. But I've heard from other people that it's pretty seamless and smooth to be able to you just log out of your phone and then go over to your PC, log in, and it just picks up right where your phone left off because it's online, which is really cool. But yeah, it's pretty cool. One thing I did want to bring up though, guys, before we keep going with this is I think that some people, this might be a little bit controversial to say, but I think some people are getting a little carried away with how innovative Breath of the Wild was. And I know that's probably controversial, but like
just stepped into it right now.
Yeah, I'm like, screw it. Where are we at?
Oh yeah, you stepped in that pile of crap, buddy.
Well, we're past 15 minutes, so that's when the views start dropping off. So I'm good. So
nice.
My true opinion comes out after that. No, but
you're dealing with the real threat right here.
Yeah. Well, you'll be here till the end, so I guess that's a good point.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, but no, Breath of the Wild is definitely one of the. When you think about some of the best games of the last decade, Breath of the Wild is clearly on that list. You know, even if someone wants to consider it like their game of the decade, I'm cool with that. To say that Breath of the Wild, changed the open world game and and raised the bar. Yeah, totally. It's a great game. It's a fantastic game, but some of the elements that Breath of the Wild used, they really just perfected what was done elsewhere and did it better than anywhere else rather than it being something new, right? Like the Ubisoft Tower trope of open world games where there's a really tall structure above everything else that you have to go towards. Like that's been in those types of games forever. Climbing, like Shadow of the Colossus, Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, like those games have had climbing or, gliding. That was in Far Cry, for example, or like the big endless sandbox that was in Minecraft, the cell shaded exploration that was in Journey. I mean, Breath of the Wild just took those elements, put it all in one game, and then did it better than all those games, right? And that's commendable. But people act like any open world game with a tower is like, oh, Breath of the Wild.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Well, even the developers said that they were inspired by other open world games while creating Zelda. Like they had their staff like play those open world games like Assassin's Creed and see what worked with them, and then they made their own game out of that. I think there's always a level of influence from other games and media when creating your product.
Yeah.
I don't think anything is truly original, but I still think Breath of the Wild is the greatest open world game ever because it takes all the concepts and nearly perfects them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say fully perfects them, but nearly perfects them. I've never played a game that could just suck me in so many hours like that game.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing though that I'm trying to get across is Breath of the Wild took things that other games did and it kind of, turned it on its head, changed it up a bit, did it in its own way, and it did it better. And eventually a game's going to come out that is going to do it again, right? It's just a matter of time. And I think that we need
Breath of the Wild too.
Well, I was talking about Genshin Impact, but anyways, no, but what I'm getting across is that games are going to come along and they're going to copy this, right? They're going to copy that formula. And that's a good thing, I think, for them to try to copy a good game. I mean, how many like Dark Souls like clones have we seen, right? We saw with Immortal Shell, right?
Yeah, I was going to say we just copied or we covered that game. And back when we were covering that game and it's released and since then, I think that episode was like a couple months ago at this point.
Yeah.
No one was breaking their console over and being like it's ripping off Dark Souls, or
Yeah.
anything about
And
Mortal Shell, and it wasn't free. It was like a
$30, I think.
30 $30. Yeah, so like they're even selling their inspired, Dark Souls inspired game,
Yeah. Right.
trying to make a profit off of it.
I'll tell you
So
this too. Even though I say like Breath of the Wild is the greatest open world game ever made right now, I see Immortals Phoenix Rising, and it is very clearly using things from Breath of the Wild, even down to using a glider and like shrine like places you get to find and do stuff. Everything
Mhm.
like it is very much inspired by Breath of the Wild. I don't feel anger that it exists. The only thing I feel right now is, damn, I want this game. It looks really good.
Yeah.
Like I why is it so bad that some games take that inspiration and want to make a great open world game themselves? Maybe there is a point where you take it a little too far on using concepts from another game, but
Mhm.
I don't think it's a bad thing to be inspired by what became one of the top rated games of all time, pretty much ever since Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Zelda. And like Ocarina of Time influenced so many 3D adventure games. Like you can pretty much pull any 3D adventure game and see where some influence from Zelda Ocarina of Time is. And like you said with Dark Souls, there's so many games out there that now take concept from Dark Souls and embrace things like difficulty and such in their
Yeah.
games. Like you not everyone needs their handheld
Well,
in every video game ever made.
and
And like I said, sometimes it can go a little too far.
yeah.
Like this is clearly too much like Dark Souls or something like that. But I don't think it's a problem in general to be heavily inspired by another game.
Yeah. And
You can go.
good.
You can go. I was just going to say you can
Go
go
ahead.
even further back to talk about a franchise that we talk about all the time on this podcast, Final Fantasy, right? And that series was directly inspired by Dragon Quest because Dragon Quest at the time in Japan was just and still is, just like this huge phenomenon. So anybody trying to make a hit RPG back then, in the 80s in Japan was looking at what Dragon Quest was doing and essentially saying like, okay, that's the correct way to make, a console role playing game.
Well,
And what can we
that's
take from that? And that's essentially Final Fantasy was born out of that
mhm.
inspiration from Dragon Quest, a lot of it. And it eventually changed and became its own thing, but this is not new, I don't
I
think
mean,
it's not really something to get upset about.
this is just the order of things. I mean, once Final Fantasy VII came out and made a big impact, a lot of games tried to, copy that steampunk, cyberpunk type element. We had World of Warcraft that was very popular. A lot of online games copied that. Skyrim for open world games. I mean, good God, how many copycat Skyrim games have there been where they tried to copy that formula but kind of change it a little bit? But the thing is, each one of these games does change it a little bit. And I think with Genshin Impact, it's literally an RPG. It's not an adventure game. It's an RPG. I think that's
Yeah.
what's different about it is it's an RPG.
Yeah.
I do, like I said, I do think Genshin Impact and Immortals both dance on that fine line
Mm,
from what they take from Breath of the Wild specifically, not open world games in general.
mhm.
But I still don't think it's a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, if they make it work well and they have like their own thing going on with it, I don't see the big deal. I don't want to rip my PS4 over there and throw it across the wall. I mean, I think the most disappointing I've ever been in the game is probably the announcement of Federation Force for Metroid on the
Mm.
3DS.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know what
That
you're
game,
talking about. Yeah.
like, but I'm not going to pick up my 3DS right here and just tear it in half and be like, how dare this not be a genuine Metroid Prime game or something like that. I'll be like, huh, that sucks. I hope they actually make a Metroid Prime one day. But
Yeah.
I don't get why people can get so legitimately angry just like over a product existing.
Yeah. I
I have
don't
I
understand it.
have to I don't want to be this person, but I have to ask if it has something to do with a certain fringe of the Nintendo community is very, very pro Nintendo to the point where a certain reviewer gave Breath of the Wild like an average score, and they were just incensed. Like they were just,
Man,
sending the guy all kinds of hateful messages, and
fan bases are
like that's
horrible. And I don't
yeah,
recommend anyone join into a really hardcore fan base because I've seen some and they really go too far.
yeah,
Nintendo is definitely not the exception on that.
Yeah. There's a
yeah.
weird tripwire that people get in their brain with certain games that I don't really understand, that I'm almost fascinated by, because there was a similar thing with Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn when they first came out, and it was ridiculous. Like it was almost like if I said something like, "Oh, I really like Horizon Zero Dawn," somebody felt like encouraged to bring up, but it's not as good as Breath of the Wild, right? And I'm like,
Those, those
those are
games,
it's a different game.
yeah, and those two games released so close,
Yeah.
like to each other, right? Wasn't it like not even a
It would be
year?
impossible to copy off each other.
Yeah, like their concepts had to be like in development, not knowing what each other were doing, But then they ended up with similar concepts, like the whole towers mechanic, right? Is still in both of them,
Right.
you know. So there's similarities because of they're both taking inspiration from what's come before.
Yeah. It was just so strange to see the internet just evolve into this insanity regarding that. It's like you could only enjoy one or the other. You couldn't possibly enjoy both. And it's like, why? They're both great games. you know?
Yeah.
Can I tell you what I think may be problematic with Genshin Impact, though? I'm not to bluntly change the subject.
No, it's all right. We've ventured way off course. What's up?
um, the only thing I really am concerned about, and again, he and our friend brought it up earlier, and it made me think. Do you think so? This is a free to play game.
Hmm.
It's I would say it's near AAA quality,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it has a free to play structure, and it does depend on the gotcha elements to an extent, probably especially in game mode, where spending a lot of money is probably going to be a thing. Do you think other companies might try to emulate the success of this game? Major companies.
I think that we've already seen this a little bit because, but it seems usually with AAA games, what happens is they'll launch something like Fallout 76 and they'll try to like have you pay for it and it flops. Then they'll just be like, okay, we'll make it free to play, right? Or something like that. And but like, I think usually it's not like built from the ground up with that kind of budget that's free to play. So I don't know. I mean, this is really successful. I saw online where they've already recouped their money for to build the game, and it's only been a couple of days, right, since the game's been out, or a week and a half. So
I
it's
think they said it took 2 days.
yeah, dude, that's crazy. It took 2 days for them to make $100 million. It's crazy. But the thing is, from what I've seen with people talking about it, and I've only played like 14 hours, and I've only seen twice where I could buy something and like it wasn't like I just said no and I haven't needed to. And I've seen other people that said they've played like 80 hours and they haven't bought anything at all. And they're not like stuck picking berries for like 9 hours, right? But what I understand is, like you said, Eric, at the end game, it kind of gets to the point where it starts to lean on you pretty heavy, which is understandable. It's a free game. They have to make money at some point.
Yeah.
It can't just be free. So like to get certain characters and stuff, I guess, or to certain abilities, you can pay or you can sit there and do these trials for like 3 weeks or something. I don't know. But apparently that's where they're making their money. But Stan, what do you think?
As far as the gotcha elements are concerned, I think they're not very intrusive
Yeah.
overall. From what I have played, I never got like a pop up menu saying like, "Oh, you now have X amount of currency. Like, do you want to try and like roll for like a cool character or something?" Like they explained it once, like
Yeah. Yeah.
they introduce it, and they never bring up that menu again. Now, I went there and I spent some of my free game currency trying to get other characters because the game does a good job of like dumping this freemium currency on you with every single task you do. Like you defeat an enemy, it's like you get like 5 to 10 of this currency, and now you need like thousands to to roll for like a character, and they're hoping that eventually you'll just get frustrated that you're not getting the character that you want, and then put up some money to try and get them. I like it's like that's any other gotcha game in that regard, but it can be ignored. And I didn't feel like the game was too grindy until I put some more time into it yesterday, and I kind of got to a point where so in the game you have like an adventure rank, and that kind of dictates
Yeah.
whether you continue doing the story quests.
What level are you?
You have, I got to 18.
Okay, so we're around the same. I'm around, around the same level 20. I think was my main character, and the other ones are kind of like a little lower. Yeah.
Oh well, like you have like your character level, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the characters have their own level.
Yeah.
But then overall, you have a rank, like an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that adventure rank dictates like what kind of quests open up. And in the beginning, like your rank is just like you're rank 3, you're like rank 4 or 5 because you're going around the map and discovering all these things.
Right.
But I kind of got to the point where I discovered everything that was on the first map that they give you.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't high enough adventure rank to continue the story in that area, so I had to like venture off. And then the game started feeling a little grindy, like right around adventure rank like 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point then you have to like start doing certain trials or like achievements to get your event to increase your adventure rank. So the game definitely has a lot of what would you call it, like features or strategies that like it's paced in such a way to like really get you rolling to start, but then later on it's kind of it slows down that sense of progression. And so I can see like people getting more tempted, like once they're already invested in the game, to want to explore those gotcha mechanics that are there that aren't really necessary in it at all, I think. But if you're still playing the game and then you're getting bored, you're going to be more tempted to like, oh, let's try out this new character, or it's.
Yeah, I feel
I
you.
can definitely see a lot of the gotcha game elements in there.
I guess, that's, I see what you're talking about. I guess my approach to it was a little bit different, but I can see where you're coming from. And maybe this will give me a chance to talk about the combat, because when I started hitting that moment there where I was just like, man, the only thing I can really do at this point is do some of these challenges. I would try the challenges and then I would lose. And I didn't think like, I guess maybe like once I thought, well, maybe, this is where they want you to buy something. But I thought, well, I'm just doing this wrong. Right. And so I started like looking up like the combat and looking at like the combos and making sure I'm doing the combos right. And then I realized that, shooting with electric and then fire creates a field of effect, right? Which will attack all the enemies with more damage as opposed to a single enemy. And then I started doing that. And then I beat the challenge. Right. So it's kind of like, I just learned the game better, but I'm sure that at that point, that's going to be the first drop off for a lot of people, is they'll be like, I don't want to read this. I'm just going to get this new character, and then I'm sure there's going to be new layers to that throughout the game where people are just like, I don't want to go through this dungeon 5 times. I'm just going to go ahead and pay some money. But I mean, the game's going to have more expansions and such. So, but what did you think?
How much money they got? They better have more expansions.
Yeah, they can make a whole new game. Right. But Stan, what do you think about the combat using the different characters and like the strategy element of that? How does that sit with you?
Like, so like you were just mentioning earlier, the combat system with the elements and how you kind of combine those elements is like, that's the real meat of it. Without that aspect to it, it's very button mashy, in my opinion. Like you are just spamming that attack
There's no defensive measures. It's all dodging and attacking and special move, right?
Yeah, you attack until you see like an enemy's like attack animation like threat
Mhm.
move kind of highlights on the ground where the enemy is going to attack a lot of the times, or they have like these big massive like windups that you can see from a mile away. So you kind of just mash on PS4 it's circle. You mash circle until it's time to sprint away, and then you sprint right next to them and you start mashing circle again. But eventually the enemies get enough health so that it's like really inefficient and time consuming to just only be attacking, you know. And the game, to its credit, will put up some like time based challenges at you every now and then. Like
Yeah.
you need to defeat all these enemies within like 2 minutes,
Mhm.
and if you're just mashing, you and you might be able to get away with it if you have overpowered characters and equipment, right? But otherwise, um, it's going to be like an ice enemy or like a water enemy. And so if you switch to the guy who has the freeze power, you can freeze them, and then they'll be frozen in place, and they'll take more damage from like a lightning or a fire attack, like right after.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the game does not have any MP, so you can use your spells as much as you want, but they're on a cooldown,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that cooldown is long enough to rather than waiting for it to cool down so you can use your ability again, you're just going to switch characters and use their cool ability, right? And then and you're just going to cycle through your characters and try out your different combinations of elements. So that's definitely the most interesting and fun aspect to it. Um, Without those character specific elemental abilities, I think the combat would be pretty awful. you know, but it does have that, so that
Well,
keeps it
that's
fresh.
yeah.
Well, let
And
me
usually
ask
the
you,
yeah,
for how many characters you have so far, do they all feel distinct from one another?
Mine do.
they do. Pretty much, you have like you have melee type characters and ranged characters, and so like those feel different even in just the button mashing that you do. Like they'll have bows or like a spell book, and they'll be kind of shooting this magic at the enemy. Um,
Well,
but
another
then
thing
so
that's
far, so far, all the characters I've gotten have had a different elemental ability that like I got there's this girl they give you as part of the story who's got like lightning magic,
mhm.
and her elemental ability she can shoot little orbs out and has like a low cooldown, or you can push and hold the button and like a big ring will come out around her, and then once you release it you'll hit all enemies in that area. And that's the only character that I've gotten so far that has that kind of area of effect attack. So I like to start off the battles with that character and then immediately switch to another character, you know, try and finish off some of the enemies. And so, yeah, they do feel unique, but you can kind of button mash with everybody. You know, like it's not you
well, I
don't have
don't
to practice good with every character. I
that's
think
true.
it's just kind of it's more of an understanding of like what they can do, and
I
then applying that against the enemies.
yeah, I didn't really look at it. Initially, I was just using my main character, to be honest. I was just using my main
Mhm.
character, and like I guess like I would use somebody like every once in a while. And then I got to the point where it just clicked with me, and I realized that I don't really look at them as individual characters because I just press F on my keyboard and they switch characters really quick, like in place.
Yeah,
So because you can only use one character at a time, and so
yeah,
I
and they
just treat
also
it like a single character, and I'm just like constantly switching on what I need to build up the chain, right? To use
yeah.
whatever kind of special ability I want. And so that kind of gives it a little bit of flair to it that
Yeah,
I think really makes it stand out from the Breath of the Wild comparison because that's not really something that
it is.
is
It
done the
is
same
kind
way.
of like yeah, it is kind of like a single character, like you mentioned, because for some reason they all collectively have one stamina bar. Like if you sprint and deplete your stamina, I thought, oh, I'll switch to another character, and then I'll be able to sprint with them. No, your your stamina is depleted. They don't want you to be able to just like sprint and then switch because there's like a 1 second or less cooldown on being able to switch characters. And so if you had four characters, you'd be able to just sprint forever
What's
or climb forever, glide forever, whatever, you know.
yeah, what's crazy too is I haven't really been able to experiment with this too much, but because I just need more characters. But from what I was reading online, once you have more characters and they have different elements, depending on who's in your party and the type of setup that you have, will also give different buffs to your party. If you have, for example, 2 fire-based characters in your party, it'll boost everyone's attack by 25% and make everyone 40% resistant to fire. But if you only have 1 fire character in your party, it doesn't do that at all. It only, obviously, only the main character, that fire character's got the fire resistance. So there's a lot of experimentation you can do with the types of characters that are in your party and the challenge that you see coming in front of you. So I think that's another part that adds some variety.
Some strategy, because if you put like 2 fire characters in your party, then you've got fire and you can do 2 more elements, but then say you do fire and then lightning and ice, for example. Well, now you have no wind or no
and it makes the other, like the water character resistant to fire too, and it boosts the water character's attack also. So it's kind of cool that it applies to the whole party. You know, kind of it's really good at pushing you to think of the party as, like I said, just a core, like a single character as opposed to each individual member. So I think that's what I enjoy most about it.
One cool thing that happened to me yesterday regarding the element system is it's not just applicable to combat, though I think it like 95% is you're thinking about the combat scenarios for it. But there was like this lake that I was trying to cross, and I was trying to get up on I knew I wouldn't have enough stamina to swim across, but I wanted to get to the other side because there was like an island in there with like a treasure chest or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'll climb up high and then I'll glide across. But the cliffs available to me were too far away, so I wasn't going to be able to reach it. I was going to land in the water and then not have enough stamina, and I would die. But the ice guy has his spell. You can use it outside of combat, and it puts a layer of ice on top of the water.
Yeah.
So I was able to shoot the ice, walk across a little bit, wait for that cooldown to finish, shoot another layer, and then I was able to just walk across the lake to a place I wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So that's the only situation I've come across where the elements were useful outside of combat.
And obviously, probably fire burns down the obstacles, that type of thing, right?
Yeah, like they'll have like a treasure chest that's like has like overgrown vines all over it or something. So you got to shoot it and burn it down so that you can get to the chest, and stuff like that. So every now and then it's applied outside of combat as well.
Yeah, so I think it's a good game that, like, it has a lot to offer people if you don't want to spend money. There's plenty of game to play, but eventually it's going to ask for some money, you know? And I guess, like, I was sitting there thinking about it. Like, if I did play this game for 100 hours, okay, how much money do I want, you know? And how long is that going to last me? Because I mean, if I would prefer to pay $60 for the game and just have the game and own it and be able to play it, right? But I mean, I don't know how much it is. I'm just guessing here. If it's like $5 and I don't have to spend money again for another 20 hours, like that's $5 for 120 hours of gameplay. that's not that bad, right?
I don't think you really need to justify it. If you feel like it's a quality product and it's given you a lot of hours of fun, you know, I don't see anything particularly wrong giving like $10 or even $20 to the game to go towards it. Like, even with Terra Battle, which was a free to play game on mobile devices, when I beat it, I mean, I was like, man, I got a full RPG quality story from it, and I gave the game some money. I didn't need anything from it. I already beat the game.
Yeah.
But I felt like they gave me a quality product, and they deserved some of my money for it.
Yeah, it's just once it becomes almost predatory, right? When it feels like you're having to do it like 2 or 3 times a day, you know, just to keep up. Like, for example, Final Fantasy 15, A New Empire, the cell phone game. I was watching this Final Fantasy Peasant video, right? And he was talking about how he was contacted to make a video promoting the game when it was coming out. And he was going to do it. They're going to pay him like $3,000 to make this video. but then he saw when he played the game, there was this guy that spent $900 getting resources for his city, $900. And that put him in the leaderboard in the top 10. But then he checked back like 4 hours later, and the guy was now down to like the 100th place, and he spent $900. That's ridiculous, right? That's not even like worth my time. To Because if you spent that much money, you should just be in like the Hall of Fame, right? That's just ridiculous. So I don't. I think there is a line to cross, and I don't feel like this game crosses that. The Terra
I
Battle
think
too.
where people are going to put a lot of money into this game is one to get a specific character. Likely, there's going to be some really good OP character or some character that like has a really nice design to him. Because yeah, another thing with this game, it does have really well designed characters in it,
Yeah.
and and like I said, I was joking before about being a bunch of waifus in it, but there is a level of truth to it. Is that there is a lot of appealing looking characters that some people are willing to spend a lot of money on to try to get that particular character.
Yeah.
And in game, and if there is a strong in game online for this series, I'm very sure people are going to require specific setups to join with parties with one another. I don't know how hard the game's going to be. It may be easy enough that it doesn't matter who you bring with you, but if there was a level of difficulty like that, there will be likely some peer pressure for you to get or pay money to get the characters you need to be part of a proper end game party.
Mhm.
This is where the gotcha stuff will most definitely get you.
Yeah.
If you are big into the game, I don't imagine either one of you dedicating so much to the game that you would do something like that. I can see maybe all of us like spending between $10 to $20 to give our appreciation for the game, but I don't think any of us here are whales particularly for any game.
No, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's
No.
there are certain people out there who are either like you said, those whales like in like Clash of Clans or something. They just want to win every time, right? And so they're like, I can throw down 100, $200 to just win every time. Like, cool, I'll do that. They'll do that, and then they'll just play through the game and have a good time doing that. But like you said, there's other games where to kind of keep up with the meta, right? You need like certain equipment or characters or something, and those things are really rare. And so rather than grind for them, people get get frustrated, and then you're spending money out of frustration because you have put so much time into this game,
Well,
and you feel like you're not getting the same sense of progression or reward as you were when you started the game.
yeah.
And it's kind of like taking advantage of human psychology, essentially.
Well, I
You see
think.
that in a lot of
Go ahead. I'm
free to
sorry.
play games. That was basically it.
Yeah, I agree. But the just kind of sugarcoat this a little bit. I have seen people online that have said, "Hey, I'm a doctor or like I'm a brain surgeon or something, and I don't get a lot of time these days, and I make a lot of money, and I don't have time to sit there and grind.
For the grind, yeah.
So I like being able to just use my money and just buy the equipment I want and play the game as opposed to, and beating it, right? Or just getting that sense of some satisfaction as opposed to being permanently stuck in like the first 8 hours of the game because you need to, get so many gems or whatever to be able to progress."
I mean, I'll say this. I may not agree what you do with your money, putting so much money towards a game like this, but it's your money that you earned.
Yeah.
And if you find value in the product, then by all means, what right do I have to tell you what to do or not do with your money that
Yeah.
you earned? So if you want to put it towards a video game that you love so much that you're willing to put, say, $900 towards it, then by all means, I highly recommend not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, these companies intentionally design these type of games to get you to potentially spend that much money if you have a level of addiction that may cause you to do that. But again, it's your money, and I'm not going to point a finger at you and be like, "Hey, look at David. He was stupid enough to pay $900 for for one thing in a video game." It's like it is your money. You have the right to do what you want with it, and like I said, if it wants to be towards this, then by all means.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So to wrap this up, is there anything else you guys want to bring up about the game? And also, would you feel that you would? I think we all would recommend this game, given it's a free to play game. Like there's no barrier to entry. But I'll let you guys, obviously give your own input. So, is there anything left that you guys want to bring up? And then, would you recommend the game? Stan, why don't we start with you?
I would recommend the game to try it out because it's free and because, from what I can tell, the monetization in it is not predatory. At least, not from what I can tell, having played like the first 20 hours or so.
Yeah.
It's a fun open world game that is rewarding you constantly. Small rewards like treasure chest behind every corner or up on top of every ledge. Like you'll I want to get up to that mountain because there's like a discovery point up there, right? On the way, you're going to find dozens and dozens of treasure chests and just feel rewarded like every 5 seconds, basically, like, so the game just keeps you in this combat reward, exploration reward kind of loop.
And you have
And
your
you get,
little quest book with all your to-do list items that you always have something to do, right?
yeah, pretty much like you won't get bored of playing this game for sure until you feel like it's kind of a grind, then I could see you getting bored with it. But for the first I'd say a dozen hours or so at least, like it's very very open and very rewarding.
Yeah.
I've only played enough to only just give a first impression of it, so I can't say if the game is really good in the long run. I can say though, like Hat said, it is a free to play game. There is no barrier to try it. Um, just the elements put together with it, it's really not my cup of tea. At the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of the character designs. Um, the combat feels a little too simplified for me. I'm sure it gets a lot more in depth when you have multiple characters to play around with. Um, I do feel like it's just not my cup of tea. I know I say as a Breath of Wild fan, I love exploration type games, but I think the other elements in this game, like the story, doesn't interest me and stuff like that. I mean, it's not something I'm going to play more of. But if you're a JRPG fan, like if you love playing all sorts of different types of JRPGs, not just like particular series here and there,
You're listening to
yeah,
this podcast, you're probably a JRPG fan. Yeah.
yeah. Likely anyone watching this, it is definitely worth a try.
Mhm.
I, I I do recommend it to an extent. It may not be my cup of tea, but I will acknowledge that it is a surprisingly high quality game
Yeah. I
in a
agree.
lot of areas.
I agree. Well, so yeah, I would recommend it. Of course, it's free. Like I said, like you all have brought up, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But I just real quick, I just want to say that the music is very Breath of the Wild, but it's fantastic. It's just I'm constantly impressed with how good this music is, and then the art aesthetic again is Breath of the Wild, but it's just beautiful. I mean, the amount of like sunsets I've just sat there and watched in this game is just like that's one of my favorite things to do in this game because it's just so just overwhelming. And
Mm.
I think like the biggest negative aspect I would bring up real quick is just the voice acting for certain characters is horrendous for me.
Fairy.
Yes. Yeah. That
Yeah.
fairy. Shut up. Don't ever talk.
I was gonna say another Zelda influence, right? They got the annoying fairy,
Yeah.
but this one is, yeah, pretty
Well, it
annoying.
sounds like
And I
somebody's
tried turning
literally
it to the Japanese.
it's bad too.
Yeah, I tried turning it to the Japanese, and it did not help the situation for me. So
I will say no fairy in Breath of the Wild.
yeah, that's true.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, like it's literally sounds like someone's just like an adult is using like their falsetto voice. It's, hi guys, and it's just like that. That doesn't sound like a fairy. That sounds
Stop.
like a grown person
Please stop. Yeah.
using their falsetto voice. But
And if I was that studio, I'd be like, all right, we're going to have to listen to this character the entire way through. Like, can we at least make sure that she doesn't sound like you want to put an ice pick through your ear?
yeah, which is weird because all the other voice acting is very tolerable, and some of it's actually pretty decent. But yeah, Eric's right. That's the one character that like is just glued to your hip wherever you go. So, anyways, but yeah, I would recommend the game. Go check it out. I think it's awesome that you can play on your phone and then pick it up on your PC. Hopefully, you can switch that to your Switch down the road when we find out when this game's coming to Switch. Hopefully, the Switch version is actually good, given the fact that the PS4 version is pretty good, but it's had some of those issues that Stan brought up. Occasional issues, but still very, very playable. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm liking it. I think I'll still play it. No subscription or anything like that. Hopefully they don't feel like they need to start jamming in these elements, these free-to-play elements earlier in the game to make more money. You know, but I don't, apparently they made $100 million in 2 days. So I would think they would be okay. Right? So we'll see. But yeah, it's good. So good game. Definitely go check it out. So what do you got here? So our next topic here for the day, let's go ahead and transition. We're running a little behind schedule here. We're going to be talking about a Switch Pro. So there's lots and lots of indications that a Switch Pro is coming out in 2021. This is beyond the normal rumor mill that we've seen since the Switch has come out. You know, every single year, people are talking about the Switch Pros coming out. There's going to be a Switch Pro. Well, now we're actually seeing places like IGN like talking about the Switch Pro coming out next year. And they're not even like, well, maybe. It's pretty much everyone knows it's coming. And so I'm going to go over quickly kind of the indicators of that. And then we're going to talk about what we want to see in a Switch Pro. And then also we'll kind of jump into Monster Hunter Rise because there's a rumor about that game that's connected with the idea of a Switch Pro as well. So I'm going to quickly go through some of this, but basically, as we all know, Nintendo has been under a lot of pressure to upgrade the Switch. A lot of fans some fans anyways, are wanting just a little bit more power, possibly the ability to upscale to 4K, that type of thing. But the problem the Switch has is that they have their own market at $300. And to make a more powerful Switch, they want to keep it affordable and not be in the like $500 range, right? And the current Switch is still selling at $300 right now. Obviously, if a Pro comes out, I would presume that might get discounted a little bit. We'll see. But that's the current. What's that?
You think Nintendo's got to discount something?
I don't know. Maybe they'll just discontinue it and that'll be $300, the Switch Pro. I don't know. But we'll see. But the big thing that's really indicating that something is happening here is that Nintendo recently reported in their financial statements that they spent $800 million in the prior year on research and development. Now, if you don't know what research and development is, that's where companies are developing new technologies and new hardware. And $800 million is not normal for Nintendo to spend. So clearly they're working on something. And that makes people ask, what are they working on? Well, NVIDIA, the company that makes graphic processors, right? They announced a projected 2-decade relationship between NVIDIA and Nintendo. And that's a pretty good indication of what's going to be what Nintendo is probably working on. And so people were kind of like, well, what are they doing with NVIDIA? And a lot of people, including places like Digital Foundry, are saying that Nintendo's probably interested in NVIDIA's upscaling technology because they use what's called DLSS 2.0, which is currently a feature in a lot of PC games. But what it does is it takes a 4K image and then it takes a low quality image and then it makes the low quality image look like the 4K image, and it learns from that process, and they have it do it like 1 billion times. And then eventually it's able to just take a low rendered game that without the 4K guide and just make it look 4K, right? And they're actually adding detail to the game as opposed to standard upscaling, which just duplicates pixels that are already there. So it ends up being kind of a blurry picture, whereas this is literally using AI, kind of like the Maguri mod, but way more advanced to make a 4K image out of something low resolution. And that's beneficial to Nintendo because this technology lets you use cheaper components in your PC. So you can have like a lower budget PC and still get like really good frame rates with really good resolution because you're using AI to upscale the image as opposed to your hardware having to render something at a much higher resolution. So for Nintendo, if they want to keep that $300 price point, that kind of makes sense that they would use that technology to be able to make, like Witcher 3 that runs at 540p look like it's in a higher resolution than it actually is without having to put like this beefy processor and everything in there. So that's what people are looking at right now that they're probably going to be. This is just people speculating, but it makes a lot of sense why Nintendo would be interested in that, given that's one of the features that people want is just better looking games, better running games. So the question is it going to be Switch Pro or next gen? What Nintendo's working on? People are saying, well, the $800 million is probably next gen hardware, but the Switch Pro is most likely coming out in 2021 because that's going to be a year in which you have new consoles on the market. And also there's supposed to be a buttload of games coming out in 2021, which would be a prime time to release it. And also there's just been leaks like crazy from all over the place with Nintendo telling developers to make their games 4K ready and stuff like that. So, I mean, we're not talking rendering 4K. We're talking upscaling, right? And, there is a difference. Maybe we can get into that at another time. But anyways, most analysts are saying, yeah, it's from the rumor mill and pretty credible sources and based upon this relationship with NVIDIA and how much money Nintendo has been spending and just the fact that like we've gotten very few games this year and a lot of big games are coming out next year. A lot of people are looking at 2021 at this point for Switch Pro. So on that note, now that we've kind of set a foundation here, first thing, would you guys be even interested in a Switch Pro if it came out in 2021? Even with the other consoles, presumably you're going to buy one of those too. So Stan, why don't we start with you? Because I think you're probably the most cautious, I would imagine.
Yeah, you are correct.
It's gonna be a typical response over here.
Yeah, me and Eric are just like,
I bought
yes.
Yeah, so I bought a Switch later, like about a year after it came out. So for me, there's still a bunch of games on Switch that I haven't played. And so to get like kind of the full value out of that console, I would want to at least finish the games that I have.
Well,
like
to clarify real quick, being a Switch Pro, this wouldn't be
still play the
it would be like a
games.
PS4 Pro, right? It would still be the same generation. It would just be a little bit more powerful. So
yeah. But I mean, I bought this $300 machine, and
I got you. Okay, yeah.
If I can still play the existing games on it, I don't know. I guess it depends on what kind of features or enhancements the Switch Pro has over the original Switch. I'm pretty satisfied with the original Switch. I know it's like not as powerful as my PS4 right next to it, in some regards, but it's still a pretty solid machine, I think. So,
well, I want to put you on the spot here. What features could they announce that would make Stan be like, okay, I got to get it?
Okay, so one that I can think of right away. It's not so much an issue with the Switch, but an issue with the dock. The dock does not have an Ethernet outlet on it.
You can
right.
buy
So
an
if you buy the
adapter.
Switch,
Yeah.
yes, there's an official adapter that you can use and plug in to your USB, one of your USB slots that you have, and then it gives you an Ethernet outlet. But that is $30, right?
It's still
And that's
hard too. on
Yeah.
how much data runs through it.
I own one, and like it did improve my speed for downloading, but I have 1,000 download, and I get like, instead of like 60 download, I get like 100. Like,
Let me put it this way: Sakurai recommended an Ethernet adapter to play Smash Bros. Most efficiently. You still cannot play Smash Bros. Efficiently, even with 1 gig speed and an Ethernet adapter.
Yeah. Part of that is their net code they use for Smash Brothers Online is just not optimal, but that's another that's another topic. But overall,
And
I think a Switch Pro, like at the bare minimum, the dock that comes with that machine should have Ethernet standard, and then that way developers in the future could set up their games so that you could, in matchmaking, like more easily determine who has a good connection,
yeah.
right? Or set up rooms for Wi-Fi only versus Ethernet only, in their matchmaking systems. That would, it may not fix everything, but it would improve the online experience for Switch. So
yeah, for some Switch games, definitely. For Smash Bros. In particular, there is a specific issue with the type of netcode and backdrop they use. So,
mm,
unfortunately, a game like that is flawed on a fundamental level. And
yep,
unless they completely change that netcode, it doesn't matter if you get a nicer console or get better internet speed. Unfortunately, for that game in particular, they would need to rip the netcode from
yeah, and build
and
build it from the ground up. Yeah,
yeah, for that in particular. I can't say for other games of what they did, and I do agree that they should have a better cap raise,
hmm
especially if it's on the pro. But if anyone's thinking that, like, oh, I can finally have a better online matches in Smash Bros, it's not going
Yeah.
yeah, not necessarily.
So, but
May
just
improve some. But yeah,
so better internet, that would get you to, would that be the catalyst, or that would just get you thinking about it?
that would get me thinking about it. I
to
mean,
happen.
better graphics, frame rate, resolution. That's all. Those are factors also.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of things. I don't think there's any like smoking gun or like killer feature that they could add from Switch to Switch Pro, to suddenly make it a must buy for me. I'm more inclined to buy one of the new consoles than an upgrade of my current console. You know what I mean? Because like I never bought a PS4 Pro because I was satisfied with
Yeah, PS5
my
will be
base
a
PlayStation.
gigantic jump for you then. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a
Exactly. Like
giant jump for me, but even more so for you. Yeah.
yeah, like I still haven't played Witcher 3, right? I bought it a long time ago on a sale, on a discount. Just haven't got around to it. But now I'm like, well, there's going to be a free upgrade to the PS5 version apparently. So maybe I should just wait even more. I've already waited this long. Might as
And I
well just wait and play it.
highly Nintendo will release any major first party title that only the Switch Pro can play.
Well, so there was an example in with the 3DS and then the new 3DS.
Yeah.
You needed the new 3DS in order to play Xenoblade Chronicles. But I
Right.
think that was maybe like because it literally couldn't run on the original 3DS hardware,
I think they
so
decided that was kind of a flop too, right? Like it didn't
they
sell as
like they
well as they had hoped. Like I think they hoped
yeah.
that was going to like push consoles or something, but it just kind of was a game people bought.
They also
Yeah.
released Hyrule Warriors on the 3DS, and it did run better on the new 3DS, but like not by much.
Mm.
So it was one of those games that like you could buy it for the regular 3DS, it would run really poorly, or you could get it for the new 3DS and it would run fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I don't know if they want to do this for a major console game. I guess Xenoblade was at least niche enough at the time to experiment with new specific games, but I
Mm.
don't think they want to put that behind Mario or Zelda, like alienate a
Right.
complete audience of your Switch just to have slightly better graphics.
I do see with
Yeah, that
the Yeah, that wouldn't be good at all. I do see with it almost being like a fetish to see, will this game run on a Switch, right? And we're starting to get bad ports with like the Outer Worlds, where I don't want to say bad, but it, from all I've seen with all the coverage is that it's essentially a giant water painting with hard to read text. And it's not necessarily that the Switch can't run it. It's more it's very complicated because we've seen good ports with like Witcher 3, but that takes time, right? And not every developer wants to spend that time. So I could see a world in which games may not require a Switch Pro to play, but you wouldn't want to play it on anything but a Switch Pro. I could see something like that happening for sure. But
I can see a third party going like, well, it's Switch Pro only, and maybe just be a digital content.
but if
Just
Nintendo requires them to have a regular Switch version, they might just be like, "Yeah, don't buy that version." You know, like oh yeah, it runs like crap on that one, but it runs great on the Switch Pro. You know, but for me personally, guys, I gotta be honest. If I'm gonna buy a Switch Pro, I mean, and it really depends on what they're offering here, because we can give our hopes up about it upscaling to 4K and all this other crap. Nintendo might just come out with like 14-hour battery life, like a bigger screen, and like maybe it's got some grips, and like they fix maybe the drift on the Joy-Con or something, and it's a Switch Pro. But I don't think they're going to do that. But if it's an actual upgrade, like we've seen with Xbox and 3DS and you know PlayStation to an actual Pro model that's a little bit beefier, what I want is in docked mode. Every game needs to run bare minimum 720p. I do not want any more games to be running this HD 540p crap like we got with Xenoblade. Like no, like F that. It's a freaking Switch Pro 720p and docked mode. I understand if it's portable, you know, you'll get a little leeway, but if it's a Pro model, come on, man. 720p has been around since the PlayStation 3. Like, like that was 14 years ago, docked mode, 720p, bare minimum. And I want to see games like, you know, Breath of the Wild and, you know, Fire Emblem Houses is locked at 720p docked, which is weird. But Breath of the Wild is 900p. Those games need to be 1080p. So I think like I do want like a big increase, but not so big to where like we're saying where games are going to be restricted to it. But for me to buy a new console, I do want to see that kind of upgrade, because I'm starting to get to the point where, you know, the Switch felt kind of novel in 2017 and it still does. But if there's another way for me to play the game, I almost choose the other way, because I just know it's going to look better on my PS4 Pro. It's going to play better. And it's just like, it depends on the game, right? If it's like an indie game or something, I'll play it on the Switch, or obviously a Switch exclusive. But I mean, I prefer to play it elsewhere, the games elsewhere. If I can get 60 FPS on one console and 30 FPS on the Switch, I'm going to the console all day, you know? So I do want a power upgrade.
I will say on my end, I will absolutely trade in my old Switch and Switch Lite towards to get the Pro.
Yeah.
I do want the best out of that handheld. What I do hope for it at the least, well, first off, I think structurally it's going to be the same as the original Switch. Um, in
So
terms
it
of
won't it won't be like a TV box that can't be a handheld anymore.
yeah, I think it's going to look almost exactly like the original Switch. Just because the Joy Cons are made in such a way that they go along with the size of the device itself. So unless they plan on making whole new Joy Cons for the Pro, which I don't see that in particular happening, um I'm not saying it absolutely won't happen, but I just think that they're just going to make a better handheld device overall. I think it may have a 1080p screen, which I think would be
It would be,
fair.
I would be
It may
excited if it was just 720p across the board, because there's a lot of games that dip really low. But that would be awesome if it was 1080p for sure.
It was a 1080p screen, and then the dock itself does at least emulated 4K. Not required for every game. Absolutely, you can just have it be 1080p docked. Absolutely. I'm sure older games, bigger games like Fire Emblem and Zelda and Mario will probably get updates for
Patches,
ups
yeah.
if Pro is in the works. Um, I think that's what it probably mostly will be. I think it will just have a better battery life. I think it will run games a lot better, a lot faster. Um, I don't think it's going to be as significant as people think. Your theory before, if Nvidia is going to be using that experimental 4K feature,
Hmm.
uh, I really think that's going to be a thing. I'm not so sure if it's going to be a thing for this product. I think it might be a thing for their next gen product.
Okay.
I say that. Well, let me ask you:
Hmm.
how long has Nvidia been working on this, and when did they join with Nintendo to get this underway? Because usually they have these ideas
Hmm.
started and going years before we
That's a good
even
point.
like hear rumors and speculation.
So that technology, it's on the second version. So it's been around for a long time, like almost like years, right? The announcement of the relationship has been since last year. They announced the relationship was a thing. So it's possible that it's been before that. But I look as the Switch Pro as like their chance to test it, right? In like a lighter fashion before they use it in an actual next gen software or next gen hardware, and that's kind of where I look at it as, especially if it's going to allow them to have, because they could just barely upgrade the processor in the Switch and just use this technology. And you're going to get like on PC, you can look it up on YouTube. People are getting like twice as high frame rates with like really crappy PCs because they're using this. I mean, and it's not the same as 4K. It's just not. There's nothing that's going to beat the real thing, right? But it looks pretty good. So, and people are bringing up that if this was using the Switch, they could use it in a maybe not as aggressive fashion, but they could use just games like Witcher 3 that are 540p a lot of the times. They could use that to just upscale it to 1080p, right? And it would look really good. And they would, as far as the Switch is concerned, it would still be running a 540p game. So it would still be, 30 frames per second. So I think I see what you're saying though. Like, how hard is it to implement that in new hardware, especially since this would have to be something new, right? Whereas currently it's in PCs, to put it in the Switch, make it small, make it affordable, I don't, maybe they need a few more years, but I think,
I could be entirely wrong though.
I,
I just
yeah, it's just people speculating. They could be, that did linger in my mind though, is perhaps that might be something they'll save for later, but I don't know, man. I don't know. If they went with standard upscaling, I don't know. I mean, the regular PlayStation 4 couldn't do that, right? They needed a Pro model. So it's just, I don't know. Apparently, the current Switch is capable of 4K. They just have it limited in software. And people have like jailbroken their Switch and they're able to play video in 4K. They can't play games in 4K, but it can do like Netflix and, well, video, YouTube in 4K, I guess, because Switch doesn't have Netflix. But so I don't know. I imagine if it was just standard upscaling, it would probably be games in 1080p, and then maybe cutscenes would be in 4K, like we currently have with Xenoblade, where it's 540p gameplay and then 720p cutscenes, maybe something like that.
yeah. So I think realistically we may see a 1080p screen, potential emulated 4K
Mhm.
on a docked mode, or at least get games up to proper 1080p, like they should. Some games like even Witcher 3, maybe you can get to the level of a PlayStation 4 if it's docked. Maybe.
Yeah, that
But
would that would be that would be impressive. Yeah.
But dream features, I hope, is the system's a lot lighter because the Switch Lite is a very light console compared to the original Switch.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't feel heavy on your hands at all. That's one of the most appealing things about it. And I hope they find ways to make it feel a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And of course, I hope the battery is really good. So, but if they're working with NVIDIA, I really hope they at least develop the processor well enough that it doesn't eat up the battery so much upon usage. I think that's a big flaw of the original Switch itself before the new like version 2.0, not 2.0, but like the more recent iteration of the regular Switch and the Switch Lite both have longer battery lives than the original Switch right now. So hopefully they find a way to make that last a lot longer. I shouldn't, you know, it should Breath of the Wild should last longer than 3 hours. Well, I'm saying,
Yeah.
maybe 6 to 7 hours.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. To be honest, I don't even like I've used my Switch definitely in the handheld mode for sure, but I primarily play it docked just because it looks better and plays better that way. And I use my Switch Pro controller. I mean, I might play like some Fantasy Star or something like that in bed, or Final Fantasy or something in bed, but usually I play docked. So I don't really. I've been playing some more 3DS lately in bed, right? And that feels more of a handheld to me because it's small. I can close it. Like the Switch definitely to me anyways feels more of a console first, but you can play it handheld because of that 3 hour time limit with Breath of the Wild. So it would
It
be cool if it
depends.
was what's that?
It depends with me. Like Breath of the Wild definitely feels better when I play on the console. But and like I've been going through Grandia 2 again. I got over
Good
my
game.
corrupt from last time, so I've been going through it again. That one feels a lot better to play on handheld
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
Switch Lite.
Yeah, for sure.
I decided to make things a little more complicated for myself. I own both consoles, so I have to use the cloud save to jump between the two.
Mm.
That's uh that's an extra minute to go between the two. So maybe that's another motivation for the Switch Pro is to get out of that little mess I created for myself. Trade both in, get a Switch Pro, and just go back to the more simpler feature of it.
Yeah. I see people saying that they think despite everything, all the leaks and everything, they think that what's happening in 2021 is Nintendo's going to launch a brand new Nintendo console, like the new line, like the next Switch. It won't be a Pro model. And I just like look at that. I'm like, that's crazy. The Switch is like selling record levels, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like they'd have to start over with a brand new library. No, they're
I
not.
will say though, it is getting close to being 4 years for it, and the usual lifespan of a console has been 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, so I think a Pro is
Think-
trying to get some extra life out of it.
Yeah, like it's a pretty safe bet that since we know they're making Breath of the Wild 2 for the current console, the Switch, that there's no new console coming because they wouldn't dedicate that core Zelda team to a title until it was
Well, you had
unless it was going to be compatible with both, like the Wii U and the Switch both
yeah.
had Breath of the Wild.
Could see the
know.
processing that in your head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we saw that come.
Yeah. Well, let's keep
might
going.
have-
What's that?
I was going to say we're going to have to wait probably at least a few more years for the Super Nintendo Switch, which
The Super
the next
Switch.
generation Super Switch. Yeah.
We may not even get a Switch next time. Nintendo's pretty.
What do you think they're going to call the Switch Pro? Do you think it'll just be Switch Pro? Think it'll be
No, because
the Nintendo
there's
change?
I'm sure it'll be something that'll confuse the hell out of normal customers.
The Switch U?
see if they were yeah, the Switch. If they were smart, which okay, I don't want to put it that way. If they were consumer friendly,
Okay.
they would call it something like Switch 900, and that would mean that it's like 900p minimum, resolution.
Oh,
But they
okay.
won't do that. They'll call it,
The new
they'll call it
but new
they'll,
and like
the,
little
the new
Dude, I was just getting PTSD from Microsoft with their jackassery console names like Xbox 360 and like, but I guess that was just jackassery marketing. Yeah.
I think there may be some novelty into the name Switch Pro.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty simple way of saying this is a better version.
well, the rumors for a Switch Mini, where it was Switch Mini, right, for a long time, and then they came out with Switch Lite, right? So
yeah,
perhaps they'll try to change it a little bit.
it's too similar to PS4 Pro, which is why I think they won't use Switch Pro, even though for the consumer, that, like you said, that's a very simple connection to make. Oh, a Switch Pro, a more powerful Switch, right? But no, they'll call it something like the new Nintendo Switch or the Switch U, right?
That is a good point. It would be too similar though.
Well, they have the Pro controller, right? I guess that's just a controller. That's not a actual console. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have some more. We have some more information to go over here. We have Monster Hunter Rise that was announced for the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of people are feeling, based upon some comments from Capcom and the way the game looks and the trailer, that this could be one of the first games that is optimized by Switch Pro. And so basically, Capcom made the statement that was kind of vague regarding the possibility that this game might be on a Switch Pro. And then later they came out and kind of backtracked that a little bit and just said, hey, we were just kind of talking and we didn't mean for it to come out that way. We obviously don't have any idea that this, what kind of hardware Nintendo's working on. And this game has been in development for like 4 years. So even if there is a Switch,
to the back of his head, he's like, "Did you type it? Did you send out the tweet?" It's like, "Yes, sir."
Yeah, it's just like, we don't even know who sent it anymore. Like he's currently does not even on our play roster. Really, he never worked here, but no. So they've backtracked quite a bit here on that, and people aren't really buying it because they just, there was lots of games that were enhanced by a PS4 Pro that were not in development the moment the PS4 Pro was announced. Like, right, it was developed at the beginning of the lifespan, and then they came out with patches later and things like that to update the game. And this perhaps might just be Nintendo leaning on them, since there's been these credible leaks that have stated that developers are being told by Nintendo to make their games 4K ready, whatever that means. I presume, obviously, upscale. But first off, obviously, Monster Hunter Rise. What did you guys think about the trailer? What did you think about the announcement of the game? And then we'll kind of get into the timing.
Fun. What I kind of wonder about it, I haven't looked too much into it. Like, is it just like a Monster Hunter World like game just built specifically for the Switch? Because I read the features and I watched the trailers, and like, it's cool. You got like the hook shot mechanism. I think that's gonna be a real big dynamic to the game. But is there anything that really distinguishes it from another Monster Hunter? Because the only thing I've seen is that it has a open seamless zone instead of going into multiple zones like you usually do in Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter World introduced a full seamless zone that you travel around in.
And Rise has that same thing, they said, right? It's a seamless open world, which is impressive on the Switch. It's one of the reasons why people are like, just there's a lot of people talking about this game. Stan, you're the Monster Hunter fan, or was World your only one that you got into?
That was the only one I really got into. Yeah.
Okay, so
it looks very similar in style. Kind of early in the trailer, there's some scenes where it looks like the guy is like the character is like climbing like up a tall cliff, and that seems a little bit different. Like Monster Hunter World has it has like a verticality to it, but it's still very like you're on a path.
So
like
it's
you're on a path.
Breath of the Wild clone. It's Breath of the Wild clone, because there's.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, gonna go break my Switch. Be right back.
At least some from there's a part where there's like I don't know, more
he
higher terrain.
he like
and he's
runs
able-
up a wall, a mountain, right? The side of like a mountain cliff. He just runs right up it, like, and climbs up it, like almost
Yeah.
like really fastly. Oops.
So, I mean, it's pretty similar, but it maybe it might have more verticality to the level designs.
So, Monster Hunter fans, feel free to call me out on this and correct me. But the way I see it is, Monster Hunter World is a very powerful game, and I don't think Capcom found a real viable way to make it work on the Switch, just for how much is going on at a given time. Like those giant seamless monster battles that you crawl on this big creature. I just don't see stuff like that working on the Switch viably unless you take like some huge or cut some huge corners. Especially with Nintendo's online structure, it may just not be compatible with the system at all. So Capcom goes to themselves and say, "Hey, Monster Hunter is a very popular portable game too. There's a lot of people who love the handheld aspect of picking up, playing Monster Hunter, putting it in your pocket. And we want to give a Monster Hunter World like experience, but we obviously can't on the Switch. So why don't we make a new game that has a lot of similarities to Monster Hunter World, but retains the handheld aspect to it that people really enjoy, like with the PSP and the 3DS, those consoles. That's just a theory, though, but that's kind of how it comes off to me. Because besides some of the Monster Hunter World features they put in there and the new hook shot, I don't see what exactly differentiates this Monster Hunter from others.
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting thought that basically this is just a kind of a mobile version almost of World, except it's got a different name and different characters, but effectively that's what it is. It's
I'm sure it's its own thing. I'm
right.
sure it like they're developing like special unique things about this game. It's not just a substitute for World, but
Mm.
it might be an answer for people who want a handheld Monster
Version of
Hunter
that.
instead of a full on console version experience.
Yeah, I can see that. I know that apparently what Capcom said was Nintendo approached them to put a Monster Hunter game on Nintendo Switch, and Capcom told Nintendo that we're not doing it unless, like, Monster Hunter Rise. There's the other Monster Hunter game, which is like a typical, from what I understand, like a turn-based RPG, which we can talk about at a later date. But this particular one was kind of what Nintendo was wanting, and Capcom apparently told Nintendo that they want to use the Resident Evil engine, and if that can't run on the Switch, then they're not doing it. And they were able to get the engine to run on the Switch, and that's why Capcom says the game looks so good, and you know some of the elements that make it seem like it's not possible on the Switch. So I think this game looks great. Apparently, the footage that we saw in the trailer, it was captured on a Switch. They said that wasn't PC footage. So I see what you're saying, Eric. Like it's almost unbelievable, and it kind of puts like games like The Outer Worlds to shame. That game looks like that on the Switch, and apparently runs that well. We'll have to actually see once we get it in our hands if it does run that well. If it
Yeah,
does,
its
like
own term, it is a beautiful looking game. I agree with you. I
yeah,
mean, it's lush and colorful, and I like the dynamic camera angle used when engaging a monster. I mean, it has a lot of good going for it. I definitely want to pick it up.
dude, the game has like literal reflections in the water. There's not a lot of like while they're in combat, like there's one of the scenes where you can see the reflections of the enemy in the water, and it's just like Jesus. This is a Switch game, The fact that that would have that was just impressive to me. Given the amount of detail that's in the environment and the characters and the amount of actions that are going on and the animations and how smooth they looked, it almost looked like a very ugly looking PlayStation 4 game. you know, and so that says a lot for it to be on Switch. So I thought it looked great, but this is kind of one of the reasons why people were looking at this game as, oh, this is going to clearly, if they're going to release a Switch Pro, this would want to be one of the games they would want to advertise as, hey, look how good this looks on the Switch Pro, right? Because it does look that good. I mean, it's gotten that reaction already. People are saying this looks amazing. So to see this, upscaled or just with that enhanced performance of a Pro would obviously be something that you would want to advertise. So if that's the case, this game's coming out March 21st, I believe, 2021. So that means a Switch Pro would be coming out around the same time, perhaps like April 1st, around then.
I don't think it's coming out around that time.
Because I'm in the same boat, man. That sounds too early. I would think like September.
Yeah, I think late summer to fall, if a Switch Pro does exist, 2021.
Yeah, because I can't, like, people are saying, oh, Nintendo's going to sit through this holiday, collect all the holiday sales of the regular Switch, and then they'll announce it in like January, and it'll come out in like April. And I'm just like, oh, that would rub so many people the wrong way. You just bought a Switch.
I think the Switch Pro will probably get announced similar to Lite. Lite got announced during E3 of that year in June, and it came out at the beginning of September. It came out along with Link's Awakening.
Okay.
And I think very likely there is going to be a game announced for 2021, possibly Breath of the Wild 2. And I think it will get a lot of attention detail announced in June. I think they'll announce Breath of the Wild 2 between September and November. And I think the Switch Pro will get released alongside that.
Yeah, because a lot of people have pointed out that
that would make sense.
Yeah, the Switch was launched with Breath of the Wild. Switch Lite was launched with Link's Awakening. So people are just looking at that as a pattern that, okay, obviously Breath of the Wild 2 is going to launch with the Switch Pro. They could just, I mean, we're coming up on an anniversary of Zelda, right? They could just remaster some old Zelda games or something like that, right? But
yeah, it would, or it could be some other Nintendo title. I'm just saying Breath of the Wild 2 because that's the only real Nintendo title that's we're looking forward to in the works right now.
Yeah,
I can't really think of other ones at the moment, but
that would be smart. Yeah, and then just bundle the game, right? Also with the new console.
Yep,
Switch Pro or whatever they call it. Just
and you have Eric day one.
With
yeah. I'll be a knock on the door. Let me in. It's like the console doesn't come out for 2 months.
I can't wait to cover Breath of the Wild 2 and just how much of a copycat of Genshin Impact it is. It just copied all the aesthetic and all the mechanics of Genshin Impact.
Breaking my Switch. Be right back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you, Eric. So just to wrap up here, I think that was an interesting kind of conversation with Capcom, but I think that if anything, maybe Monster Hunter Rise will get like a patch or something like that. But I think March is too early. I think that would piss so many people off.
Can I give a small shout out to Monster Hunter Stories 2 coming out?
Yeah.
Next
why not?
episode?
Yeah.
That looks amazing. The graphics look spectacular if you look at the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
The first game was really good. If you're a fan of games like Pokemon, something like Monster Hunter Stories is something really cool to get into. And Monster Hunter Stories 2 looks like it's just that next step. And it already puts Pokemon to shame in terms of how good it looks.
Yeah, it does. It does look really good. When I watched that trailer, I thought, wow, they announced 2 games, and both of them I kind of want to pick up. And that particular one is supposed to be it's supposed to be more like turn-based, more traditional RPG, right? So a little bit more story focused than Monster Hunter Rise.
Focused, very collect monsters focused.
Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
if you're a Switch fan and you like Monster Hunter, 2 great games to look forward to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fully agree. All right, let's do some housekeeping real quick, and then we have a Discord question from Valvedrix, and then we'll end the show. So I just want to give a huge shout out to RPGFan.com. They are our media partner. They've been awesome to work with, over the past year or so, and we look forward to continue to work with them with being able to provide game footage for them, and they're able to, put us on their webpage and promote us and everything like that. And it's just been great. So definitely go check out their website. They're updating it constantly with RPG news. I think most recently they have a review of Final Fantasy Chronicles, which Crystal Chronicles on the Switch, and they gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I know that there's some other video reviews in the works, games that I've recorded footage for that have not appeared on the YouTube page yet. I'll kind of let that settle because I don't want to put pressure on them to put out video content when they're not ready yet, but they're constantly putting stuff out, and they have other RPG podcasts as well. They have Random Encounter, Retro Encounter, and then most recently Rhythm Encounter. So Rhythm Encounter is like a music-based RPG podcast. They go over soundtracks and things like that, right? And Random Encounter does more news and just kind of off-the-cuff discussions. And Retro Encounter, they do more focused discussions on specific games. So go check them out. They got a Twitch channel. They're constantly streaming all the time. Big Discord community, and it's been great working with them. So definitely go check them out. And if this is your first time checking us out on YouTube, or you're listening to the audio version, we do have a lot of other game discussions. Our next game that we're going to be discussing is Super Mario RPG. So that'll be coming out fairly soon. I just got to beat the game. I've been playing Genshin Impact instead of Super Mario RPG. So I'll kind of
my homework, and these two guys have been slacking off on other games.
Well, I mean, I've been playing the sequel to Breath of the Wild, the replacement of the entire Zelda franchise. So it's
what do you mean? Immortals Phoenix Rising doesn't come out till December, pal.
Well, we'll see if it can really knock Genshin Impact from its top place of all open world games, including Breath of the Wild. I'm joking, by the way, guys, if you're sitting there screaming at the highway while you're listening to this. So anyway, some other games that we have discussed on here, we did like a 3-part series of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. We talked about Crisis Core. We did a Final Fantasy VII discussion, the original, lots of other Final Fantasy games like 15 and 13, Xenoblade Chronicles, Dragon Quest XI, and Dragon Quest V, Kingdom Hearts 3, Knights of the Old Republic, Chrono Trigger. Also doing more side Final Fantasy discussions on this channel as well. Most recently did just a discussion on the future of the Final Fantasy franchise after seeing the Final Fantasy 16 trailer. We've had lots of guests on other podcasts. We had Mike from Resident Arc, formerly Dark Pixel, on with another guest, Heon, to talk about, our favorite PlayStation games. Lots of other stuff to check out. So please go check some of that other stuff out. We'd really appreciate it. And enough of plugging our own stuff here. Let's keep going. All right. So on Discord, we have a question from Valvedrix, who asks, if you had to make a party of 4 Final Fantasy characters to last you an entire adventure, which characters would you choose, taking into account how much you like them and how useful they would be in your party? So I've got my lineup of characters. Who wants to start us off? Dan? Or you want me to go first?
You can go for it. Yeah.
All right.
Go for it.
All right. So I tried to think about this, and I know the kind of direction here is characters that you like, but then also characters that would be useful. And so on the useful front, I thought I'd go with Cloud, even though it's kind of stereotypical, tropey for Final Fantasy. He's almost the mascot of Final Fantasy at this point, besides Chocobos, right? But Cloud, he can do magic. He can be a magic dealer. He can, get in close and be more melee. He's just all around good. And also he's a very flawed character. And I think that type of character makes an interesting story. So I would like to see him in my party, I guess. Right. And I think that it would be interesting to have him and Vivi discuss things or just be in a story together, because Vivi struggles with who he is as a person and whether or not he's an actual real person because he's been manufactured. And Cloud kind of has a similar inferiority complex going, right? Because he thinks he's a puppet at one point in the game of Final Fantasy VII. He doesn't think he's a real person. So I think there could be a lot of interesting conversation with that. And then also Vivi is just a strong magic user, long range. So awesome character to have in your party. My third character that I would have is Luna Freya, because we did not get enough story with that character from Final Fantasy 15. And I wanted to know more about her. And so I would want her to be the healer in the party. And I actually was thinking about it too. If Cloud somehow got Geostigma, I feel like Luna Freya might be able to cure it. Because doesn't she cure? She cures something similar in Final Fantasy 15. So I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there, but it seems like it should be useful to have around. So get some more story with her. And I don't like the fact that if there was a game like that, Luna Freya, they would end up hooking her up with Cloud. I don't think that would be. I just don't like that in my mind. It doesn't seem like a good fit to me. But I feel like Square would do that. So I was like, who can I put in my fourth slot? And I was tied between Balthier, because I know that he would just knock Cloud out of the park with his, chick magnet game, right? However, I'm going to go with Kain from Final Fantasy IV, because Dragoons are like total badasses. And I mean, I just want more story with Kain. So, yeah, that would be my party. I know. And plus, Dragoons are long range too. So that would just be very useful, I think. So.
Yeah. All right. The 4 with me, I'm just going to take them with me because screw it. First, I'm going to do Y'shtola from 14. She is both a white mage and a black mage. Very headstrong character, very smart, can help plan strategies for upcoming battles. Auron, because he's really badass and has a really cool sword. Jekt, because he's really cool and has a really big sword. Good drinking partner, assuming he doesn't kill a shoe puff.
That's true. That's true.
And
so wait, is this so this would have to be like before Jekt goes to AA meetings, right? Because at some point in Jekt's story, I think he gives up drinking. I think it was after he killed the shoe puff, he realized he should probably calm down.
Pre shoe puff Jekt.
Pre shoe puff incident, yeah.
Last, because I'm gonna one up the Dragoon scene here.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Estenian from 14.
Don't know.
Very badass character, very powerful. He is part of the Dragoon job questline in 14, and he is also one of the main characters in Heavensward. He is probably one of the most well-developed characters that is a Dragoon. And the fact that he is a Dragoon is a major story part of the game, because Azure Dragoons are raised and trained to defeat specifically the high-end dragons of the Dragon Song War that Ishgard, where he lives, has with the dragons. So he's like the go-to guy to take a dragon down. And his character development is just, in my opinion, pretty incredible. And he is a very fun character, a very badass character, and he would be a powerful asset to the team.
So if you need to kill a dragon, call him. But if you need to kill a shoe puff, call Jekt.
Call Jekt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
And if you need a voice of reason, you can get Auron, but he's not going to help much.
Yeah. Well, and it depends. I mean, if we're going early game Jekt, well, I'm assuming you would want late game Auron, right? You wouldn't want super religious early Auron.
Oh yeah, I'm pissed off at religion.
Life Auron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stan, what do you got?
All right. So for me, I would want to take Rydia, the summoner from Final Fantasy IV, just because I want a summoner in the party, and it was between her and Yuna. I think those are my two favorite summoner characters.
10-2 Yuna or 10 Yuna?
10 Yuna. Yeah. By by a long shot.
Dude, those pistols. Anyways,
but yeah, Radia for as a summoner. Now
Okay.
I know she can't use white magic in her, adult form, so that's a bit of a bummer. Maybe for my game, I will say that she relearns the white magic because that would be more helpful. Um, then like Eric, I'm also going to pick Oren because he's just awesome. I really like that character, and
do you
he
think
has
he
like a
would
kind of
be good with Rydia?
it might be
Not
interesting
like
to
as
see
a
him.
relationship, but just like them conversing.
Might
I
be
mean, he
interesting.
dealt with Riku.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I think he just
Yeah,
kind of ignores her, but yeah.
Yeah, might be interesting because she's got a different personality than Yuna or Braska, right? The two other summoners that he journeyed with. So yeah, and then he also just has like kind of a level-headedness about him,
Mhm.
But then when when shit gets real, right? He's got another level. He can
Yeah.
get
Yeah. I
real
feel you.
serious real fast. And then also I thought about it, and I kind of want to see my other two characters. I would pick Setzer and Balthier. I think it would be cool to see those two characters interact. Maybe not necessarily from a gameplay standpoint, but they're both similar characters because they've captain of their own airship essentially. They're different in their approach. I could see kind of a relationship where they're needing to trust each other, but are also looking for the way to come out on top, right? A way to double cross the other and come out on top. I think that could be entertaining.
So who would be the leading man?
Yes, that's the dynamic that you would have because they both have a very they both have an ego to them, right?
Mm,
A sense of self importance.
yeah.
And while Balthier is more about like kind of I guess anti nobility, you could say, due to his background, like he's
Mm,
not really a fan of the um the higher classes of the ruling class of the world. And Setzer's kind of the opposite. He kind of plays nice, right, with like the empire and stuff, at least until you pull him over to your side. So I think that could be an interesting kind of clash of similar but different characters. So
yeah. Yeah. Those
purely
are,
for pure, purely for story purposes, I didn't think about the gameplay balance at all. And then I
that's,
didn't think about how Oren and Rydia would somehow be involved with those other two. But
I'm trying to, I'm
that
trying
would
to
be
imagine like the
party.
scenario in which they like have to join forces,
Yeah,
because
couldn't.
I feel like Setzer and Balthier would just like not want to be in the same room together.
We got
Yeah.
we got Square Enix listening right now for Dissidia NT2. They're like, oh, Rydia and Orin,
Oh,
that'd be very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my.
Real talk though. If Luna Freya was going to like, if Luna Freya was going to like, Square was going to like try to like make Luna Freya get with one of the characters, I feel like between like, who do you think she would choose, Cloud or Kane? I feel like it's Kane all day.
Well, Cloud doesn't really
Well,
have a good experience with keeping love interests alive, so
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's used to that.
Kane has kind of that. Kane has that trail issue going on, right?
That's true. I
At
think
least in the original game.
perhaps Cloud would be like more better long term, but Kane would be better for like in the short term. Like he might be a
Kane's-
funner time.
Kane's way too much in the Rosa.
Yeah, but
Yeah. The jealousy thing as well. Yeah.
at my game, she died a long time ago.
It's a slight subplot in 4, and it's like a major subplot in After Years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes out his way to kidnap Rosa, the Dark Kane, just because, mine I want.
Well, that's why Kane would be a good guy in
Yeah.
the party.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's
Kane is a good character.
Good. No, keep going if you want to.
I would have put him in. I would have put him in instead of Orin. Like, so like Kane would be my fifth character essentially if I could. If I could add a fifth one to this question, but Orin is just too cool. I got to have Orin in there.
See, I almost went with like 4 villain characters because I don't think the question specified, right? So I was like trying to think, and I was like, well, no, I feel like they would all kill each other. Like if you put Vayne Solidor in the party, he would just be like, it was necessary. Like he would just kill everyone out of necessity, even if it wasn't absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like that would be most villains, you know, like because almost all Final Fantasy villains have this idea of true peace is if I just kill everyone on the planet, then there won't be any more pain. So that's generally not conducive to like a group atmosphere, right?
Well, a few of them have a god complex. So
Yeah. So, dude, it might be a wild time to watch.
You got Kefka who has a god complex, and Sephiroth who has a god complex, and boom, hit them together.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of like if like Kefka, or excuse me, if Vayne, Solidor, and like Riku were in a party, I absolutely think that he would like crack that neck in like an hour or two and just be like, she came at me, it was necessary. You know, like he's just
like doesn't Dissidia NT's play with that a little bit? Because
I don't know, I don't play those.
I believe there's a part of the story where both the heroes and the villains agree that like they have to stop a certain something from happening in the game. I'm trying to remember from dialogue I read. And to get this new evil to come out, the villains and the heroes had to and it clashed with each other to create some kind of energy to make the person come out. But it's like it's not like a deliberate fight. It's like I'm trying to remember that.
I've never played it, so
the plot of those games is so messy. They generally get the character like personalities pretty good, and like when one character talks to another character, like the way they express themselves, I guess, like feels faithful. But the plot, is like just all over the place.
Yeah.
I will tell you, there are characters I never thought they would have sounded like that. Like it caught me off guard so much. Like listen to Renoa in the cutscenes, and like she sounds like a very, very teenage girl.
Yeah, I didn't really
like.
Care for
I would believe she's 16 or 17 years old now, based on that voice.
It's kind of unfortunate when you hear some of the voice acting, or that's not what I thought at all.
She looks so much older. Yeah. But anyways, just from the idea of heroes and villains working with each other, it's a very fan fiction thing, and I think Dissidia NT might have something like that. You can YouTube it. I don't think you need to buy the game.
Didn't they shut down the servers or something for that game? Like, isn't it like I thought we talked about that?
They're still going for now, but no new updates, like no new characters or anything.
Okay, because I saw it.
They're no longer.
I saw it at GameStop, and it was like $4.99. I thought about buying it, and I was like, but what if I can't even play it? Then that would suck. So,
I think Arden was the last character, and then
that'd be a character to have in your party. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up, guys. We've gone way over time, but that's okay. We will have a new podcast for you all next week, and really appreciate you guys checking us out. So we'll talk to you all later. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See you next time.